Hello everyone, it's been a little while since I've been able to get to the next video in this series, so it's a bit belated, but hopefully it'll be just as good as the others. This one is going to be on VIM. Now, VIM is a text editor for the command line interface, and once you get used to using one, you will not understand how operating systems can function without them. And in fact, you may be inclined to install it in your Windows environment as well, if you so choose. However, in this particular tutorial, we are of course going to be focusing on the Debian side of things. So the first distinction you need to understand with Vi and Vim is that Vim is not Vi. Vim is Vi improved. And we are going to be focusing on Vim, not Vi. And the reason we're going to focus on Vim and not Vi is I have a fundamental belief that the keys on the keyboard should function as the characters on the keyboard should indicate. So when you press the up button on your keyboard, it should pretty much always take your cursor up, which is the behavior in Vim. However, by default, it is not the behavior in Vi. So, yeah, there are some interesting distinctions between Vi and Vim. I'm not going to get into all of them, but suffice to say, Vim is probably a bit more intuitive and easier for new people to understand and use. It is not, however, installed by default in Debian. So currently, if I go to my command line interface here, and I type Vi, you'll see that, oh, I do actually get Vim improved, so I guess I do have it installed. Weird. Did not think I did have that on my system, but it's normally not there by default. Sudo apt remove Vim. It says it's not installed. It's odd that it would still behave that way, because technically I removed Vim before I did this video, but apparently there's some remnant of it left over somewhere that, and I'm not sure why it's doing that. But anyway, by default on a Debian system, you're going to want to do sudo apt install Vim and let that go, as it will not be there by default. And what'll happen is you'll notice that it sets this update alternatives down here, which changes Vim to, or changes the Vi interface to Vim. So I'm betting what ended up happening is that there's some residual stuff in the command line interface in memory or something, and it's using something that's not really there, because I did have it open earlier. I'm honestly not sure why it was popping up with Vim. That's not a good way to start the video, but whatever the case, if you're just starting out, you need to install Vim, which is the whole point I was getting at. So now if I type Vim or Vi, you should notice that Vim will come up, and hopefully that happens for you. And it will look very basic. So the very first thing you need to understand about how to use Vim is how to quit Vim. It's probably one of the most fundamental things that people get stuck with is they try to edit a file in Vim, and if you just type Vim or Vi, you'll get this helpful little how to use it guide. But a lot of people don't start working with it like that, and instead they just type, you know, on a particular file, like for instance installed log there. So if we do installed log, it's not going to give you those instructions, and you may end up feeling quite stuck. So that is where the importance of the different modes of Vim come into place. So when you first start in Vim, you are in a command mode, which means you can type commands, and all the little keys on the keyboard will do various different things. And you can look at various cheat sheets on the internet. They're out there, and it will help you sort of understand what you can do to you know, manipulate Vim in better ways. And of course you don't have to learn all of it at once. Don't feel overwhelmed. Just do things as you need them, and you'll kind of get into it. But to quit Vim, you're going to use the colon key, which you'll see that my cursor has now moved down to the bottom of my screen here. It's blinking, and I can type the Q command for quit, and it will quit Vim. So if I just type Vi without a file name, it's going to make a new file. So what if I wanted to write a new file? What if I wanted to make a completely new text document without providing it a name? Well, I could have done this one of two ways. I could either type Vi and then give it a name that did not already exist, which is probably the better and easier way to do it, because it's easier to support file names with spaces that way. So you could say, you know, a file, and then you'll have a new file, a file down here, right? But if I quit this, right, that file's not going to be saved in here. You'll notice it's nowhere around. That's because I didn't actually write that file out. I just quit. So that file only existed in memory and not in the directory that I was in. So if I wanted to make a new file, I could do :write and then call it file.txt or whatever, and it would write file.txt out. And you can see that it says it's written. So here, if I do an ls, you'll notice that there is in fact a file.txt in the list now. And there it is. So if I remove file.txt, I can also do by a file.txt like so. All right. Now if I do a :w there, and even a q, because you can combine write and quit into the same move, so if you want to do like a save and quit kind of thing, you can do that. And you'll notice that there is an a file there, right here, in fact. So now we have our a file.txt, and we can add some stuff to it. So first let's move a file.txt, because I don't like files with spaces in them. Well, in this case, it's just easier to work with file.txt with a file that's, you know, not crazy like that. So if we go by file.txt, we have our file.txt, and we can now manipulate this file. So what all else can we do? How can we work with this and do different things with it? Well, so there is a help, so you can do :help, which will give you help, and you'll notice there it does have split screen functionality, and it'll tell you how to move around and stuff. So that is a very important thing. To get out of the help, you can do :q, and it will get you out of the help and back into your normal window. You can also do :save as, :close, will close current panels, and you can also do some standard stuff to move around and some single letter commands. So let's get into some of that stuff. So if I type I'll go into insert mode, and you can see that that's indicated by the word insert down there. And now I can type some text. So this is some text, period. Okay. Now, if I press escape, you'll notice the insert mode goes away, and I am now in the default mode, which is command mode. Now, in command mode, if I press the H key, you'll notice that my cursor will move to the right, or to the left, I'm sorry. If I press the J key, it will actually move the cursor down, but since there is no text below that, I cannot indicate that. K will move it up, but there is, of course, no text above, so up is not, you know, a part of the equation here yet. And L will move it back to the right. If I wanted to move the cursor to the middle of the screen, you could type M. Is it capital M, I think? No. It's supposed to be. It's probably because I don't have enough text to really do it yet. So the N key does actually work. So you can do home and end to move back and forth like that. And page up and page down also work. If I type O instead of I, it will insert a new line. So this is a new line. And you'll notice that I will add, actually, if I hit escape here, right, and I type the letter I, it will put the cursor on the period there, at which point it will insert characters in between the period and the letter E. However, if I press the letter A, let me actually do that with it on the cursor the way it was. So I will put it on the cursor, right, but A, on the other hand, will put it after. So it's like appending, right? So now your cursor will start right there. So that's what the difference between I and A are, is where you're going to insert your text when you're actually manipulating it, right? And O will put it on the next line down. And you can insert it there. So once you press that, you get into insert mode, and you need to press escape to get back out of insert mode. And now you can actually see the difference between J and K, because K and J will move up and down like that. See? and you can also move back and forth with A and J. So why would you want to move with those? I tend to not, but it's technically faster than moving your hand all the way to the arrow keys. But yes, the arrow keys, which is what I'm pushing right now, work much the way they are indicated, which is not true necessarily in all cases in VI. For instance, when you're in insert mode, right, the arrow keys still function. However, of course, H and J and K and all that, they're not going to. They're going to insert the letters H and J and K, etc. But if you're in insert mode, the arrow keys do function, as you can see, and that is a feature that is unique to Vim. And VI, by default, they will not. They will instead insert random letters and weird stuff into your text and confuse pretty much all new users ever. Let's see. So, let's see. Let's actually head into a file where I have some more text. So I just did a write and quit on that. So let's go into, it's actually ls. So let's go into this installed log here, vi installed log, okay, because I have a lot of text here, and this just shows a bunch of installed packages from, I think, this Debian system, which is fine. I believe I showed this off in another video. So let's look at some more features here. So if we do a capital, actually, is it a capital H? No. Yeah, so capital M moves to the beginning of the screen. H should move to the top of the screen. And L will move to the bottom. But they don't like move all the way to the bottom, they kind of move to like the middle of the bottom. So L moves down there, H is up there, and M is in the middle, which seems a bit odd, but you know, it's fine, I guess. Alright, so the next thing is we can jump forward to the start of a word. So let's go back into our other one because it's got actual sentences. So file.text, okay. So if we do W, you can jump to the next word, which is kind of helpful. And a capital W, I think, works with punctuation as well. So E jumps to the end of a word. So let's do E. You can see that it's moving to the end of a word, which is nice if you want to insert something after a particular word. B is backwards to the start. Let's see. 0 jumps to the beginning of a line. And $sign jumps to the end of a line, which is a regex thing. Let's see. The hat character also moves to the front of the line. It will actually jump to the first non-blank character of the line, though, whereas the 0 will jump to the beginning of the line. So if I do this, for instance, and then I do a 0, it will go there. If I do a hat character, which is the shift character above the number 6, which, here, let me print this like that. So that character will take you to the start of the text on that line. Let's see. So another interesting thing that we can do in Vim is matching. It's a very important idea of working in Vim. So if we do a colon, we can, from command mode, of course, so press escape if you're in insert. If you do a colon, we can start a match line, and this is very similar to the commands we would edit in sed, which we have not covered in this video series yet, but sed is a stream editor that does basically find and replace and text streams and such. Well, we're going to take advantage of that and use it in our Vim program here. So what we can do is we can do an S, which is for substitute, and then a /, and then we can do we'll change, let's change the periods to exclamation points. How about that? Let's see if that works. I'm not even sure that's going to work because that's kind of no, it just changed the first character, which is hilarious. Okay, so the reason why is the period is a character that matches anything traditionally. So if I wanted to do that, let's see if I can get it to do it. So if you're on the command, by the way, so when you press colon and then you press the up arrow key, you can cycle through previous commands that you've used, much like you can on the normal command line, which is awesome. So yes, so we've literalized it by surrounding it by braces. So the dot matches any character. It's a special regex, regular expression character that means anything. So in order to make it literal, we can use the brackets like that. I think we can also use a backslash. Try that. Backslash dot, which of course is not going to be found because our character is currently still a dot. So let's add a new dot. Or was it an exclamation point? So we'll add us a new dot there. So let's try our backslash trick. Let's see. Yes, the backslash also works. So you can either precede it with a backslash or you can surround it in braces like I showed you. And to that effect, you'll be able to change that character. Now here's something interesting. Okay, so let's add a few more dots here and delete our exclamation point. Now let's try that same find and replace trick, and you'll notice that only the first exclamation point changed, and also you'll notice or only the first period, I'm sorry, changed to an exclamation point. You'll notice also that the dot up here, the period up there, did not change. Why is that? Well, by default, the substitute command there is going to only substitute the first instance of the match that it finds. You can override this default value or default behavior by adding the character G to the back of the command there outside the brackets. Now you're adding, and you can think of that as global, which I think is actually what it means. And you'll notice that now it changes all characters to a exclamation point on that line. And that's something else that's really important here, is on that line. So there's another trick that I want to show you guys, how to make it happen for an entire file. So I'm just going to switch those characters back, and we're going to make it apply to the entire file. Only this time, we're going to do it like so. So the way to make it apply to the entire file is you precede your substitute identifier there, flag or whatever, with a %sign, which tells them apply this to the entire file. Now this is also not going to change every single dot on this page to an exclamation point, and the reason why is I have not included the global command. So this is going to replace the first occurrence of every dot on every line. And so what I'm going to do is just show you that now. So now you can see that we've replaced the first occurrence of every dot. How do we get it to do all of the dots? Well, what we do is we simply combine the two, the % trick with our G, and it will replace all instances. So let me show you that now that I've changed them back here. So we'll just add a G to the end of that line, and you'll notice that everything is now exclamation points. So that is how find and replace works. You can use that trick with various bits of text to do a lot of different awesome things in VIM. So how about copy and paste? Well, you can do the normal, like let's copy and paste it, like, you know, hold shift generally, and you can copy the line. And then you can also go down a line, and then you can do your middle click. Actually, I think we copied that. So let's see, let's right click, hold shift and right click, and you'll get copy. And then if you do control shift and V, you'll paste it. So that's the old school way, I guess, to copy it, but there's an easier way. If you just want to yank lines, you can use the yank command. So let's go up here to this is some text, press Y twice quickly, and then press P. Press P and press P and press P, and we can get as many of this text as we want. If we want to yank more than one, you can actually do 2 YY, and then you can come down here and press P and P and P, and you'll notice that they increase weirdly. So it sort of inserted them between it, and that has to do with where the cursor was when you press the P key. So if we delete them, and by deleting I'm just pressing DD twice really fast. So if I do the P, actually, whenever you delete a line, it also yanks it. So let's do 2YP, 2YY to yank both lines. We'll come down here to the bottom, and we'll type P, and then we'll go down, type P, go down, and type P, go down, and type P. So that is another way to yank and paste lines. You can also do yank for words. So let's say I want to just copy this sum here. I can do YW, and it'll yank just the word. Now if I come to the bottom and I press P, you can see it actually inserts it within there. But if I want to put that on a new line, honestly not sure. Let's see. Let's do an O. We'll just escape it, and then we'll do P. Usually if you're yanking a word, you don't want to put it on a new line entirely, but if I want this yank word, right, and do a P, that'll put new there. And a capital P will paste it before the cursor. So if I want to do like, if I want it to be before this word here, I can just do hold shift and press P, and it'll put it before that word. So that's a way where you can rearrange text within a sentence really quickly. Also, X will delete a character, so if I want to delete this new, I can just press the X key over it and it will delete it. I can also use the standard delete key and it will do it as well. Let's see. U is undo, so if I wanted to undo all that, I could press U and it will undo those. R, control, that will redo an action. So U and then control R. Let's see. So S is substitute, so if I wanted to change this, I can do S. We'll delete the character, and then I can substitute it with another one. Capital S, I think, I'm sorry, I gotta be capital S will delete the whole line, and then put me in insert mode so I can replace the line. And again, use undo. If I do XP, I can transpose letters, so XP, and you'll see that it transposed them. So to show you that again, XP, right? That just transposes two letters, so if you know you have a typo in your word, rather than going back and deleting both characters to retype them, you can just go over them and press XP and it will transpose them. Note that it will only transpose the two, it'll transpose the letter that comes after the cursor with the letter on the cursor. So if I do XP here, you'll notice that it swapped the M and the O. It will not, however, alter the S or the E unless you move the cursor essentially to the S. Then you would swap the S with the M and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and fix those, which we can do quickly with our XP command. DW will cut a word, so DW will cut the word, and then of course U will put it back because undo. You can also cut to the end of the line by doing D and then $. It will yank everything from that point that the cursor is at forward. So that's a cool little trick, I guess. So you can also undo that, or you could hit paste because it also, whenever you cut something, it cuts it to the clipboard. So you can do that. You can also do 2DD, and it will cut more than one line. It'll cut 2 lines. If I came up here and did 6DD, it will delete all those lines. I can, of course, also put them back with U. A capital D will also cut to the end of the line, much the same as D $ will, so that's kind of nice. And of course I can use P to put it back, or I can do U. Yank to the end of the line is Y $, so that will give me a yank to the end of that line, and then I can come down here and I can add it with a P. So let's see. So you can think of P as put or paste, whichever. Y is yank or copy, and D is delete or cut. Very much the same thing. So let's talk about some editing tricks that you can do. So if you wanted to replace a single character, you can do R, and then you can type whatever you want for that character. So let's do O, or 0, I guess, in this case. And what's cool about that is that will put you right back into command mode. So if you just want to edit one character, without having to leave command mode, you can press R over that character, type your character real quick, and it will swap you right back into command mode. So if you notice a quick typo or you want to change a value and then go back into command mode to do more stuff, that's a quicker way of doing it. You can also do capital J, which will move the line below up to the current line with a space in between them, which is kind of cool. And it will keep you in command mode. And it's always important to notice what mode you're in by whether or not insert is on at the bottom here. And there are 2 more modes that we may get into as well. So we'll talk about those in a bit. But let's see, what else can we do here? What else can I think of? Or remember. That's the key, is remembering, because sometimes I'm not particularly good at remembering what we can do. So if you want to replace the entire line, if you want to do like a search and replace the entire line, it's CC. And then you can type a new line. But of course that's going to take you out of command mode and you have to go back in. If you want to replace an entire word though, you can do CIW. And then you're in insert mode and you can type, whatever word you want. Of course, you're going to have to leave insert mode manually that way, though. CW will replace the end of the word. So if I do CW, then you can see that I can type, something else instead, and then back out. If I wanted to repeat the last command that I did, so let's say I want to do CW, and then I come down here, I can type a dot, and it will put the last thing that I did in. So I can also transpose that. So if there was like a bunch of stuff that I wanted to transpose in different places and it was just too difficult to come up with a good regex command, then you could easily replace it by doing CW, and then you could come up here and you could type a dot at the front of that word, and then a dot at the front of that word. And if I was actually using my my movement the way I should be, I would use W, I think. Nope, W. That's B to go back to the start of the word, and then dot. There you go. So, and then I could come down here and I could do. Oop, that was not correct. I'll do that. So I could come here and I could do Shift B. And then dot. Shift B, dot. And you can see it's a quick way to change text without having to write a find and replace expression. Although in most cases a find and replace expression is the superior way of doing it. Sometimes with that you bite off more than you bargain for, depending on your find and replace. The good news is there's always the U key, but if you're trying to be efficient, sometimes it's faster to just simply repeat your last command with the dot key. So you can also do marking of text in what they call visual mode. So if you do a V, you can do visual mode, and then you can mark the text by moving across it with your cursor. And then you can do a command like yank. So if we do like Y, for instance, we have now yanked that word. So if I come down here to the end here, I can do a P, and it will paste the test word that I yanked, which is kind of cool. So let's see, you can also do line-wise visual modes, a capital V, where I can yank lines like that. And then I can press yank, and then I can come down here, and of course I can do a P, and it will paste it. So that's kind of a nifty sort of thing. Let's see. You can also do things like AW to mark a word. Oops. I think you got to be in actual visual mode to do it. So I won't worry about all the visual commands because I don't tend to use them that often anyway. It's kind of a newer thing, I think, in Vim, but it's something you can do, you know. If you're interested, you can look that up and sort of get more into it. So to go to the first line in a document, you can do GG. To go to the last line, you can do capital G. Go to line 5, you can do 5G, which works. The other thing you can do is you can do colon. Let's say I want to go to the 7th line, and it should take you to like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so 7. So if I wanted to show the line numbers, you could do colon. You can type set number, and you can see the lines, and this will make it much easier to understand these line number jumps. So if I do 7, you can see it takes me straight there, or I can do 4G, and it'll take me there as well. So 4G is a way, like that's a way to move around. You can also do FI, which will take you to the next occurrence of the I character. So if you type the letter F, whatever character you follow it with, so if I do F exclamation point, for instance, whatever character you follow F with is what it will take you to, which is a quick way to get around when you're managing, you know, large pieces of text or sentences or whatever. And then TX or T whatever, doesn't matter. T and then capital T, for instance. Now TH maybe? It's probably because I'm at the end of the line is what it is. It'll jump before the next occurrence. Yeah, so let's do TI. No? Okay, TT. There you go. So it'll jump before the next occurrence. So if I wanted to insert something between those two, it didn't like the. Actually, it should do TI. It's because I'm close to this I here is what it is. So you can see that it's moving it. If I do TT, TS, or TX, it'll take me there. And then if I do FX, it'll take me on that character. So that's the difference there. And then if you capitalize them, it'll take you to the previous one. So if I do F and then T, it'll take me to the capital T in the beginning of the sentence there. And then the capital T is also the same thing. And then if you do a semicolon, it'll actually repeat that, or comma, will repeat the previous movement. So if I do FT, and then I do a semicolon, comma, a comma, a comma, it just goes backwards. It's like reverses the search. Let's see. If you had actual paragraphs, your braces, let me show you. So if I do, let's come down here. So these characters will jump backwards and forwards between paragraphs, respectively, of each other. And by the way, Vim can do code highlighting, as you can probably see there with the way it turned those blue. So if you do write code in there, you can actually, it'll actually mark the beginning and end, and it does do syntax highlighting, which you can turn on and off. So that's kind of cool. You can also do CZ, which should center the cursor on the screen, which, as you can see, it just moved all the text so that the cursor's in the middle. Let's see. Here's some more inserting commands. So let's see. EA, for instance. So if I do EA, it'll append to the end of a word. And actually, E will move to the end of the word. So if I do E, it moves to the end. And you do an A, it'll append at the end of the word, which is why that works. So really, you don't need to remember EA. Just remember A is append and E moves to the end of the word. O, we've already been over. Let's see. A will append at the end of a line. Well, capital A, sorry. Capital A appends at the end of the line. Capital I will insert at the beginning of the line. So it's a quick way to move from one side of the sentence to the other if you want to append before or after a particular line. You can work with more than one file, so we can do E, and then we can do, what was that? As you can see, it does tab complete, so that is a thing we can do. And we can also move via cursor across them too. So let's do that. It wants me to write first. So this is a way to work with multiple files without actually closing your thing down, because you can see that this way I have opened a new file up, which is kind of nice. So I can get back to my old file the same way. Go to file.txt here. Boom. There's my other file. Okay, so that's cool. You can also do, what was it? No, oh, it's colon. Colon VIM. So it saves these files in various buffers. So when you open more than one file, you have more than one buffer, essentially. So this is a way you can switch between them by doing colon BN or BP, which will switch to the previous buffer. BN. You can see that I can switch back and forth between them. So that's kind of nice. You can also do an ls to list all open buffers. Right? So you can see I have 2 of them. You can also do split panels. So let's say I want to do SP, and then I want to open this in a different panel. So SP will split horizontally, which I can do. And if whatever one has focus, you can do colon Q to quit it. If you do VSP, which is vertical split, and then you can tab your file out. We'll do this guy here, and you can see that it will actually it'll let you split them vertically as well. With the VSP, so if you want to do that. And you can, of course, also open multiple splits. So really, for those of us who use things like tmux, you don't really need that when working with Vi. Vi already provides the ability to split windows. Tmux is kind of just extra at that point. So how do we switch between these 2 windows? Well, with Vi, or Vim that is, you can actually click between them, and that's perfectly fine. But you can also do colon WW, which, oh, I'm sorry, no, it's control WW, which will switch windows. So control WW will do it. Control WS will split a window, I think. No. I think I broke it. Guys, I think I broke it. That's not fun. Okay, no problem. Just close the terminal and reopen it. How's that? There we go. All right. So let's do vi file.txt, and we'll do control WS. Does that work? No, that doesn't work. Okay, no worries. That's actually locking it up whenever I do control WS to split a window, which is kind of interesting that it's doing that. I'm not really sure why it's doing that, but it's doing it. Yeah, I'm not sure what's up with the control WW commands, but But for some reason that seems to be locking it up, and I'm not sure why. I don't really tend to use them very much. I thought that would be kind of neat to show you guys, but yeah. Yeah. So Control WS is not playing nice. Not sure why. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. It's usually why. Alright, anyway, moving on. So, there are quite a few of these control commands. However, since they keep breaking my window here, I'm going to go ahead and avoid the rest of them. Control WW seems to work. WQ is to quit a split window. WV will split it vertically. WH will split it. We'll move the cursor between the windows, etc. and so forth. I'm not really sure why it's locking up, but that's fine. So to do tabs, you can do that as well. So if you like doing tabs, so you can do colon tab new, and you can open a new tab. You can also give the new tab a file name, and it even has an X button you can click too. That's kind of cute. So you can do tab new and then a file name. So if I want to do, which one do we need? The info or install. There you go. Okay, so now you can see I have both of my files open here. So Vim will absolutely do tab viewing, and you can even click the X to close it, which is really great. You can also do, from command mode, you can do GT, and it'll go to the next tab, or G capital T to go to the previous tab. Of course, there's only two, so that doesn't show off too well, but whatever. You can also move to a tab number by doing like 2 and then GT, and it'll move straight to that tab. Of course, you can also do tab move, colon tab move. You can do tab C, so let's see, colon tab C, like that, to close the tab. You can also do tab do to run a command on all tabs. So if you had a whole bunch of tabs open, you could do that. That's particularly useful if you're doing like if you wanted to convert a Python program that had multiple files to it from Python 2 to Python 3 using a find and replace on various things. You could do a tab do command that would automate that whole process for you, which would be kind of awesome. And there's also tab only or tab O, which will close all tabs but the one you're actually working with. So that is a basic tutorial. There's a few other things I want to show you for the basics here. So if you type Vim tutor, this is a Vim tutorial that will open in Vim for you. So you're technically in Vim right now, and you just basically go through this and scroll down and you can check the lessons. So it has a bunch of different lessons. This is installed when you install Vim, so just install it and you'll have the command on your system. And you can go down and you can just edit this text as it's telling you. So just edit it right on the line. It'll tell you the instructions and you go through, and it's a really great way to learn about Vim. And so the best way to use Vim, to learn how to use Vim, is to actually use it. Watching this video is going to give you a ton of information, and for those of you who already know Vim, who didn't know a particular trick, maybe it was helpful, but for the most part, it's going to break your brain. You know, you're never going to take all that in unless you sit there and practice it and use it regularly. So the biggest thing I can tell you is don't get overwhelmed. Vim has a ton of features, and they're all really, really great. And the more you use it and the more efficient you become with it, the more you will wonder why it is you hadn't been using it before. It is really, really tempting to just stick to a really convenient, lightweight editor like Nano, for instance, which is what we normally tell people to use when they're beginners. But if you have any desire to do things on a more complex or faster or more efficient way, put the time in and learn Vim. It will help you a lot. And of course, that, you know, that's not to say that people who know Emacs or something else that competes with Vim are doing it wrong. That's not the case at all. I'm sure their editor is great. I just happen to know Vim. It's the one I learned. So that is the one that I tend to recommend and use because it's what I know. But there are tons of good editors out there. So now there is going to be a few tricks that I want to show you guys that you can do in order to make your life a little bit easier. And so the very first one is a couple of more quick commands. So if we go into vi and then our editor here, so file.txt, right? There are a couple of other ways to quit. So you can do WQ, which is right quit. You can also do X, which is the same thing as a WQ, or you don't even have to use the colon. You can just do ZZ, and it will save and quit your file. So those are some more interesting ways to quit. Also, if for some reason you need to force quit, so if like you can't save the file, but you've made changes and Vim says you need to save and whatever, but you don't wanna, you can do a colon, a Q, and an exclamation point, and it will force quit the file without saving. The other thing you can also do is you can do a ZQ, and it will force quit the file without saving. Also, you can do colon WQA if you have multiple tabs open, and it will write, save, and quit on all tabs, closing them and effectively saving all files. Now, let's take a look at a common problem that a lot of people have in Vim but can't figure out how to solve. And this is going to bring forth another really interesting feature within Vim that makes Vim so freaking powerful, because I'm going to show you some much more advanced commands here in a minute. So let's start with one that is really, really practical. Let's say you screwed up. What do I mean by that? Let's say you did this, vi etc stab. You want to make some changes to your fstab file. Now, quick disclaimer. Don't make changes to your fstab file unless you know what you're doing. You can prevent your system from booting up. If you do make changes to your fstab file, please, please, please do a mount tag A before rebooting your system to make sure that your fstab file actually works. So what do I mean by that? Issue this command. If that command does anything other than return blank, oh, sorry. Oh. These tutorial VMs. Anyway, if that command does anything other than return blank, as such, then you have an error in your fstab file, and you may, your fstab, file system tab file, and your system may not boot properly. So if that is the case, please go back into vi and undo whatever it was you messed with. Now, let's say that I want to edit this file. Let's say I want to add a line or change something about this file. Let's say, for instance, I want to comment out my CD-ROM here. Now, you'll notice down here I'm getting a warning that this is a read-only file. Vim is nice enough to give you that, but we don't always see it because we're stupid and we want to just do what we're doing and we don't look, and that's fine. It happens to the best of us. Anyway, what do you do in this case? How do you fix that? Well, there are two basic approaches that most people use, and both of them are not as desirable in my opinion. So I will show you a better method. So the first method people use is to just quit the file, open it with sudo or as root, and then write their changes and save their file. That's the long, boring way. You should avoid that method. The other method people do is they save it out to another file, and then they go and they overwrite it. So they do something like this, tilde slash fstab, like so, right? Which will save an fstab file to my home directory, and now I have a fstab file in my home directory, but I need to move that file back over to override the one that's actually in the system. So is that really desirable? Well, here's a little hackish method you can use to get around all that. If you simply do this, we're going to write. Now, here's the interesting bit. An exclamation point lets us run external commands from our Vim terminal, which this is technically a Vim terminal-esque thing. So let's check this out. All right, so now we can do sudo. We'll use, and this is why this is kind of a hackish thing, we'll use the T command, and if you remember the %sign from our previous talk about using find and replace in order to indicate the entire file, well, that is kind of a universal thing in Vim. it indicates the entire file. This file exactly, all elements of this file. So in this case, what you're telling it is, write with sudo, you're going to t it out. T is a command that splits your output between your terminal and your and a file that it's going to write to, and it's going to write to the file you are in. So basically, it's going to override the file you're already using. The reason that's hackish is because it actually abuses the T command to accomplish this goal. But it will work, because you'll notice it will give you this mess, and then you'll press enter, and then you'll press enter again. And now if you close this file, which it will absolutely give you that, so you're going to have to do an exclamation point, which is fine. And if you reopen the file, you'll notice that your change persisted, even though your file was opened as read-only and you did not have permissions to edit it. So that is a trick that you can use. Another interesting thing that you can do with that, which is also a bit of a hack, let me go ahead and open this as sudo here, is we can go down here to this guy, fix that first. Okay, now, so here's another thing. I just opened this with sudo. So if you are manipulating a Debian or a Linux system of some sort, and you are being more advanced with your sudo privileges, and you think you're being cute by allowing some people to be able to administer certain files using sudo, and you said, okay, it's okay for them to use sudo on this particular file with vi, you have done it wrong. You have given them a backdoor into your system. So I have administrative permissions on this system, so this sudo thing this trick isn't going to do anything for me that I didn't already have. But if I was a lesser user on this system and somebody gave me the privileges to mess with fstab but didn't want me to mess with anything else, all I have to do is this. And now I am in a root terminal, and I can mess with whatever I want. So the proper thing to do is to give them permissions to use the command sudo edit, which is a VIM sort of replacement. Which is a VIM sort of replacement. And you'll notice it actually drops me back into my file too, which is crazy, right? Which is a VIM replacement. So if I do sudo edit, and you'll notice that tab that will actually tab complete. And you do etc fstab. It will bring up your sudo edit with your default text editor, which is unfortunately in this case nano. So which you can actually do select editor, I think. Select stack editor. Okay, so select editor, and then we can do 2 for the default editor, and then if we do sudo edit, we'll get it. Oh, nope, it doesn't. So yeah, sudo edit apparently has a config file somewhere where you can tell it to use Vim instead, I bet. Anyway, the point is in order to be secure, you want them to have access to sudo edit, because it does not give them that root terminal thing, and not straight Vim. Not good, okay? So, but that does raise some really interesting situational things here. So let's go ahead and make a new file. New file. Okay, .text. All right, and we're just gonna do this. Add some stars. Insert me. So this is just some random text I'm typing in here. Just to show you a trick. So now I'm going to edit by file.text. Now let's say I want to take the text from that other file I just created and I want to stick it in this file. How am I going to do that? How am I going to easily do that? Can I do that with copy and paste? Well, yeah, I could, but why? Why don't I instead use Vim to its fullest capability with an R and an exclamation point, and then that file name. Let's see. We can do what? Actually, can we just tab complete that file? I think we can just tab complete that file. Let's do that. Yep, there it is. Boom. Just like that. So that's really cool. Now, let's say I'm a systems administrator and I want to get some information about my system on this particular, let's say I want to look at what USB devices I have attached to this particular machine, and I want to be able to save it into this file without any problems. let's say I'm making a document or something for other users to see what USB devices are on this particular system. How can I take the output of that and put it in this file without ever leaving them? Well, you can do that. R exclamation point ls USB. And there it is. All of the USB devices. And the funny thing is, I can do the same thing with CPU. Let's get CPU information. Hey, there's my CPU information for this virtual machine. Fantastic, right? So, that's a really cool trick that you can use to get more information in your file. So you can actually do that, and you can use a lot of different commands and tricks, and even string things together. You can do like, let's say I just wanted to get you know, the sockets. I wanted to see how many CPU sockets I had, and I wanted that information only in this particular file. Let's go ahead and enter down so we can make sure we can distinguish between what's what here. I can actually grep for that. So let's do a grep, and then tac I, because we don't need, you know, case sensitivity, and we'll just do socket like that. Boom, and there it is. So now every line with the word socket on it is there. So you can do that, and then, you know, you can have that document and manipulate it however you want from that point forward. It's just a very interesting way to get different bits of information and manipulate it. So yeah, and that pretty much works with all the commands, I think. I'm not sure. Let me try something. I'm not sure if this will work or not, but it'll be interesting if it does. So let's do this. Let's do a read, and then let's do an exclamation point and a bash. Okay? Let's see if that works. I don't think it's going to work. No. No, I think that absolutely doesn't work. Okay. So you can't read directly from bash, but I'm positive there's some tricky thing you can probably do to make something sort of like that work. But it doesn't matter, because it's basically, as long as you precede it with an exclamation point, you have a bash terminal right in your VIM setup. So here's another thing that a lot of people probably don't know about. Have you ever been typing a file name in your VIM experience? So you go into insert mode, right, and you're typing a file name. Let's say you want to type home, and then Joe, because I think that's what it is. And then I don't remember what the name of that file was exactly. I know there was one that I wanted, but I don't remember the name of it. Did you know you could do this? Oops, that's not it. Sorry, it's this. Yeah. So you see that? So how did I pull that off? Well, I just went to the end here, made sure the slash was there, right? Typed control, held down control, and typed the letters X and then F. Oops. Not sure what the heck happened there. Oh, I'm sorry. You have to be in insert mode when you do it. Hold down control, make sure you're in insert mode, and you're at a path completion you want to do, and you type the letters X, F. Which I think I actually selected one. XF, and then you can pick a file that you want to complete. Okay, so if you go into, let's see, I don't think any of these has anything in it, but you can select it, and it will do that. And then you can do Control X and F again, and there's nothing in there, because there are no documents on this thing. So that's not a thing. But I could do this. I could show you this. So etc, right? And I could do XF. And now I can go into, the heck, Network Manager's got stuff in it. And I can do XF again. And you can see that I can get in there and mess with all kinds of cool stuff. You know, if I wanted that as my path, boom. So that's control and the letters X and F. And it will give you a completion dialog so that you don't have to worry about, oh my god, what was the name of that file I needed? Of course, the other cool thing you can do is colon, and then, you know, something like, well, heck, just ls even, right? ls, etc, home, or not home, sorry, Etsy, there. And there, you've got all the files in that directory. So you could do that too. And then of course, once you've done that, you can also come in here and you can click one, highlight it, right? And then you can, of course, paste it in. Sorry. For some reason that is still on my clipboard. I'm not sure why. Yeah. So, showing you that again. Let's highlight host name. Do a copy. Okay. And then we'll insert. For some reason middle click is not taking it. I don't know what the deal is there, but it's fine. Anyway, we'll do a paste. And you see host names there. So that's another more crude way of doing it, but it can be done. Yeah, so that is the gist of that. So as before, you saw me do some interesting set things. So let's do, like, for instance, set number, right? You could do that if you wanted to get a line count, so you can see how many lines are in your file. What are some other things you can set? Well, you can do set syntax, syntax, and it will highlight syntax. Of course, we don't have any syntax right now to highlight, but it would if there were syntax there to highlight. So if I was writing, you know, a Java app or HTML or something, which actually maybe I can show you that. My HTML dot, actually, let's just do test.html. Okay. Now in here, if I do set syntax, tax, like that. And then we come up here and we do HTML, body. Actually, traditionally it's header, isn't it? Head, title, title, right? And then head, oh. And you can see it's automatically moving the lines around for me too, which is really cool, right? Body, hello world, right? HTML. There we go. So now I've created a quick HTML document that you know, just displays the text hello world with this is a test is the title of the page. And you can see that it is highlighting the syntax for me. This will work with Java and Python and all kinds of cool stuff. That was just the easiest thing to, you know, quickly show you. And you can of course save that. So you can see that it's quite powerful that way, but you'll also notice that if I go back in there, well, actually it is on. Set no syntax. Maybe that's on by default. Can't remember how to. I know number is not on by default. So like if I close this, right, and then I go back in, numbers will not be on. Syntax highlighting appears to be a default setting now, which is kind of cool. I'm not sure if it was before, but it appears to be. But anyway, the point is that numbers were not on before. So how can we make numbers be on permanently if we wanted it on for every single document we open? Well, that is where the vimrc file comes in, which we can look if we even have by doing an ls tag a. Do we have it? No, we don't. So we can make it. And it's really easy to make. All you do is do vi from your home directory now, .vimrc. And then in here you can do set number. Done. Now, if we do vi and then our file.txt, you'll notice the numbers are there by default. Kind of cool. Okay? So if we do vi vimrc, there are a few things that we can actually do in here that are kind of nice to have. If you're going to do Vundle, I think, which I thought about covering in this video, but I don't think I'm going to because it's just going for so long. Maybe I'll add it in a follow-up video. But if you wanted to, you can also do set no compatible, which will tell them to stop trying to emulate Vi so much and to just do its own thing, which is kind of cool. What else? That's probably it. I don't really tend to use a lot of these because whenever I administrate systems across a big network and stuff, I don't really want to have to worry about, is my VimRC there and am I going to have a different experience every time? Sometimes on systems that I develop on, I'll turn on numbers or I'll set up bundle and, you know, and manage some plugins and stuff, but I think bundle's actually going to be beyond the scope of this a bit. So, you know. But anyway, so VimRC is what you can use to control your Vim system in order to make sure that specific things work as intended. The other cool thing you can do is if you've ever tried to copy in some code from the internet into a Vim file, right? A text file or something using Vim. When you go to paste it, if there are comments in the code, a lot of times it'll cause it to get all squirrely and weird looking. So let's see, can I find an example of that maybe? If I do code.text, right? And in here I just make a comment. Let's actually do bin bash. This will give me some shell, all right? And now let's do a comment, and then a comment, and then a comment. And then let's come in here and let's find us some code we can copy and paste in. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Hash code example. Let's see. Shell script example. Hopefully this will give me something nice and complex so that, oh yeah, here we go. This is decent. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this piece of code that I just found online randomly in here. So I'm going to go down one, and then I'm just going to do Control-Shift up, and it actually did it correctly because it loves making a liar out of me. Okay, so that's fun. And you know why? I bet it's doing it correctly. Let's see. Yeah, it's going to make a liar out of me. Okay, no worries. So, if you notice that your code is doing this weird thing where it's like you copy it in and it loses all form of sanity and just kind of moves over and does weird things and it doesn't copy your syntax in properly, what you can do is you can do set paste. And then when you try to copy it in, it will copy it in correctly, which is kind of something that took me a while to figure out initially, so I thought I would share that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the moment. That's a pretty thorough coverage of Vim. The only other thing I can think of is like Vim macros, so let's see if I can remember the way to do this, but there are a couple of modes that you can actually do. So let's do this. Let's go by file.text, right? Let's say I want to add a space, or let's say I want to add a new line to every single one of these things, okay? So what I can do is you want to do the letter Q, right, which will set it to record. Then you're going to press another key, which will be your macro key that you're going to set up. So I'm just going to make it, we'll make it S for space. How's that? Now you see it says recording at S, okay? So now you're going to type what's actually going to occur. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the down arrow key, and then I'm going to press enter. Ooh, actually, let me try that again. So let's do Q and then S, and then we're going to go into insert mode. We're going to press the down arrow key. We're going to press the enter key. Okay? And then that's it. That's all we're going to do. All right? So then we're going to press the Q key again. Oop. Sorry, we're going to press escape and then the Q key again. So we got a little bit of extra junk on that than we wanted to. Let me actually try to re-record it. Actually, Q, S, down, enter. Okay. Then escape Q. Okay, there we go. So now I want to insert, what the goal here is to insert a new line between every single line on this in this file. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to execute our macro by pressing the @ symbol and then S. I thought that was it. Nope, it's not working. Weird. Nope, doesn't seem to want to. Okay, so let's try it again. Maybe I just didn't record it right. S, okay. Then enter insert mode, down key, enter, escape, Q. Okay, now it should be good. Now, if we do our @S, okay, there we go. So now it's working. So what you're going to type in order to execute it is the @ symbol, and then whatever key you use to set up your macro. So in this case, I used S, but you could set it to whatever key you want. Now, let's say you want to execute this thing a lot of times, because what good is a macro that you're not using a whole bunch, right? Well, for that, what you can do is, in this case, I know there's 23 lines in this file, so why don't we do it 23 times? 23 @S. Boom. And now you can see there is an extra space between every single line on this particular document. So that's the cool thing about macros. Yeah. So the other thing you can do is you can view your macros by typing :registers. And that's odd. Yeah. So that's your different registers, which is pretty interesting. Anyhow, you can also set up macros in your VIM RC. I'm not really sure how to do that. I don't tend to use it, but you could, if you wanted to, set up macros in your VIM RC so that you have macros to use. You'll probably be able to look on the internet for that for more reading. But yeah, I think I'm going to conclude this here. I think we've gone for quite a while, so I'm just going to leave that be. And we'll call this one done. So I hope you guys learned a lot about VIM today. Hopefully this was informative and not all over the place like I kind of think it was in my head. Yeah, so congratulations on making it through the video. And again, you know, practice makes perfect with VIM, and don't get overwhelmed. Don't try to rush it. Don't feel like it's too much, because you really, just knowing how to quit and how to write, how to change modes generally is good enough to start with. You can always use your arrow keys. You don't have to worry about being able to flip between lines and stuff and all that crazy extra stuff I was doing. Just the basics will get you there. You will be able to successfully edit text documents just knowing how to write, quit, enter command mode, exit, or enter insert mode, exit insert mode, etc. and so forth, right? You'll be able to know how to do all that will get you all the way there. You'll be able to do everything you need to do. Learning the other stuff just makes you be able to do it better and faster. So that's the important thing, the important takeaway, is Vim can be as complicated or as simple as you make it. And I recommend everybody go as far with it as they possibly can or want to. I've descended down a pretty long rabbit hole of crazy, so I may do a follow-up video to this showing how to do Vundle and how to basically make Vim into a full Python IDE. That'll probably be the best one, complete with you know, tab completion and like function completion and stuff. Yeah, you can do all that with them. But you just need to know how to use Bundle and get some plugins going. And so, yeah, I'll probably be trying to demonstrate that at some point in the future. But maybe in an after series on this, I'll do an expert level tier or something. I don't know. But anyway, that wraps that up. Thanks again for watching.